Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to this edition of Nita and Friends. Nita is at a doctor's appointment and she is running a little bit late. And so she will be joining us hopefully very soon. We do have a very special guest today. We have our friend Alan, a PAD warrior from the Midwest, and he is joining us today to share his story. We also have a live studio audience of amazing PAD warriors from across the United States who are going to be joining in and helping to ask questions of Alan to, as he shares his story, but also they're here to share some relatable experiences. I hope whomever is watching is inspired by his journey, but just remember the advice and views offered here, any information offered here, it's just for those purposes only for education. Do not act on any information provided here. Alan's experience is his own experience. Anyone else who shares their experience, it's their experience. It doesn't mean it's going to be your experience as well. With peripheral artery disease, especially, everyone has their own unique journey and unique experiences. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you do talk to your own healthcare provider before acting on any information provided in this particular episode. And with that, I want to welcome Alan. Thank you so much for your courage and thank you for sharing your story with all of us.
Thanks for having me, Kim.
So let's start, on the day that you remember you first started feeling not yourself.
Okay.
Was it your legs or was it your heart?
Well, I was having heart problems. And for about 2 to 3 years prior to that, I was ignoring my PAD at the time. I knew what it was. So I've actually had PAD for almost 21 years.
Really?
Yeah. I walked around with a twisting calf for 2.5 years at least, just ignoring it because I've had so much medical stuff going on and I didn't want to deal with it. So
when you were diagnosed with PAD, that was 21 years ago. Was that following an ankle injury, a sprain in an ankle?
No, that was actually following a 5-way bypass, heart bypass. So I had a 5-way heart bypass at 40. At 41, I was back in the hospital with some chest pain, nothing major. Nothing was wrong with the heart. My mom was in the hospital with heart problems on the same floor. She didn't know I was there. My brother wanted to keep it from her. She was going in, and she was getting older. She didn't want her to worry. So my doctor came in that I've had forever as a heart patient. And I said, "Hey, doc, let's check out my legs. There's something going on. I think I know what it is." And he said, "How long has this been going on?" I said, "About 2.5 years, 3 years maybe." And they did an ultrasound, and sure enough, the SFAs were blocked all the way down almost. And
the superficial arteries, those are for those who don't know, those are the arteries in your thighs, the superficial femoral artery, or SFA.
Right. So he called in, my the lady vascular surgeon that I love to death. She did the best she could. She looked at it. She said, "I can stent it on the left, or we can bypass it." She said, "The stents won't last very long. It's almost at 70-80%. And they didn't use arthrectomy at that time. At least she did not. So we went ahead and did a bypass, and I had a good landing zone above the knee. And that bypass lasted me 14 years. On the other side was just a few stents. Everything was fine, opened up. And then I had problems periodically because I was smoking, drinking, really bad habits as far as eating. And I must have had, where they would go in and clean things out, balloon things. I've had several endarterectomies over the I think 13 years that before I met you.
They do a small incision and they scrape out the plaque.
Right. And that was done multiple times on different legs. Plus,
and the endarterectomy, in case
right, So I
Okay.
went and going back and forth to cath lab and so forth. And it was probably at about 21. I'm counting backwards. We met at what would have been my 13th or 14th year. No, about 15th or 16th year, you and I. And I went into the hospital um, with my leg in the evening, about 4 o'clock in the morning. Just went completely stark white. All the veins popped out my whole leg and went cold immediately from the thigh all the way down. And I said, oh, we're in trouble here. It started getting a little bit better. Went to the hospital through the ER. They called my vascular surgeon and he said, okay, get him on heparin. We're going to go in and clean things out on uh, the next morning. And I was laying on the recovery table and I said, oh, doc, the other leg is going down. Same thing happened to the left leg. And he went in, did everything he could. And he said, this is it. He said, I can't do anymore. And that's where I started searching for at all the major university hospitals and online. And then I came home. I was just in a state of, I'm going to lose both my legs. And this is what he told me within a year. Both of them are going to be gone. Because there was nothing at this point they could do. Um, all the universities I went to, universities, hospitals I went to, vascular. That's who I thought to see at the time. I didn't know about what we know about now. Is they also there's nothing we can do, and I saw the best vascular surgeons at those places, and so they just kind of dismissed me. I went home, and I'm almost thought about doing something I shouldn't do to myself, and then I went online. I was just having a crying jag because I knew it was coming because my legs were starting to hurt again. And I went online just looking for a PAD support group. There you were. 10 minutes later, we were on the phone. And 4 weeks later, I was in Chicago uh, at your convention. And then you got me with Dr. Matasari, with Dr. Mustafa and Saab. And between all three of them, they were able to save my legs. And I continually had more problems. They were blocking up, even after one procedure, where Dr. Saab had opened up my entire SFA that was blocked again. Like I think it was a good 8 inches, 8 to 10 inches long. Cleaned the whole thing out and was able to stent it again. And that's been where I'm at ever since. And the doctors have had a rough time keeping me open. One point, through going through these treatments, my foot, I started getting gangrene on a couple of toes. So we had to go to Chicago and see Dr. Matasari. He had a fantastic podiatrist for me, and I lost half of my foot. And then I was losing my insurance, and I hadn't been moving a lot through the healing process of that foot. So I called my uh, cardiologist locally as a friend of mine. We grew up together. I said, hey, can we just go in and take a look, see what's going on? So he scheduled an angiogram, and his office called and wanted me off my Xarelto for 5 days. Yep, didn't tell me anything about bridging at the time, nothing. And at that time, I had just had a scan done on the legs to see if it had any blockages. They found one behind the left knee. And so I think it was a week, 10 days later, after I'd started my Xarelto again, and I was going to see Dr. Mustafa's office, his staff had called, and 5 days prior, we need you off your Xarelto again. And nothing to him, not knowing, he knew me and knew my situation, but didn't know I was coming in. So by the time I got to him from my left bypass, it completely clogged all the way down the foot and into the back of the knee, and everything was just 100, almost 100%. And he
Yeah,
worked
and he was in
for,
a
yeah,
situation where he was quick
yes,
to say, you know what, this is not safe. I'm sending you to the hospital.
yep,
And it was because in some of those situations, what we didn't mention is it sounds to me as though you have a reoccurring clotting issue. There
yep.
might be some sort of genetic blood clotting issue that you're dealing with. And when you were talking about bridging, what we mean by bridging is where some doctors may offer those patients who do have a tendency to clot pretty quickly a Lovenox bridge. It's an injection that literally that it only lasts 12 hours. So it's out of your body versus a lot of these medications that you take orally, they end up remaining in your body, many days following
Mhm.
the the stopping of them. And so if you stop, let's say the Eliquis or the Xarelto, 5 days before, that's just enough time for it to get out of your body so that you're not going to be a big bleeding risk when they do a procedure. But
Mhm.
with the Levinox, you can actually do, in some people, doctors will say a Levinox bridge can be a good intermediary because it only stays in your body 12 hours and you just do this injection, right?
It's
Is it
just
12 or 24 hours?
it's a 12-hour half life. So it's just a small shot, like a no worse than a diabetic needle that goes in either side of your stomach, and you exchange shots per every 12 hours per side. Um, didn't know about that, so unfortunately, I ended up going to Chicago, and they couldn't. They put me in cath lab, and they put a TPA. Kim, I don't know what that is as far as the technical term. It's a
That's just the simple version of that is it's a catheter delivery of clot busting drugs. And so they put
right,
the catheter directly in and they're shooting that clot busting drug down your legs.
right. So I had been in cath lab two times up in Michigan, or one time up in Michigan, one time here. They put me in the hospital after the procedure, and I stayed on the TPA for the clot busting medications for 5 days. And I was back and forth to cath lab. They had two catheters going in my right femoral artery to go across to the left. And they were getting further and further down the leg. But during that fourth and fifth day, the bottom of the leg started to die. So
Yeah.
they got down into the pedal loop. It just would not stay open. Um, and it's just saying the importance of taking your medications and really talking to those doctors, especially you're on these drugs for a reason. And I truly do believe, me not being on those drugs for those lengths of time, I clotted so badly that I lost my leg. Um, and I'm fine today. I haven't had too many reoccurrences. One last February, and that I called Kim, and God bless her, she had me in a hospital in Chicago in 3 hours, and the next day on heparin, and I was cleared out the next day, and it was a clot. Um, and I haven't had any leg issues since, but it's been a smattering of, I'm going to say, 50 to 60 procedures over the years, trying to keep everything open.
Do you have any regrets in the attempts? Because there are some that say,
No,
well, you know
no.
what? Was the 60 procedures that is it really worth doing? Why delay the inevitable? If you're going to lose your leg, then why not just take it now?
Right. And I've had doctors say that to me. Do it while you're younger. It's easier to bounce back. Um, Losing your leg is or part of your body. I don't care if it's an arm, a hand, a finger. It does it takes a place and limits you to your lifestyle and what you want to do. Um, it's like some people describe it as a death. You do mourn. You go through a period of anguish and saying why. And thank God I got counseling quick. Even in the hospital, they gave me a therapist really, really quick as I started going kind of south mentally. And but I got through it with a lot of work and a lot of rehab, um, and having a good prosthetist for my foot and my leg. I'm still walking, and I can't do the walking that I should be doing. There's
Mm.
just a lot of pain associated with these sockets and the numbness that goes because I still have poor circulation in my foot and in my stump or the residual limb. So there's a lot of pain standing in one place for a long period of time. Everything goes numb. I have the same some PAD related. I'm guessing pain, not the twisting of the calves and all that, but numbness, and I think it's some residual um, pain from that, the lack of blood flow. That's pretty
But
much
you don't
it.
have,
So,
I know then when we met, yes, you really wanted to have hope. You wanted
mhm,
to try to save it, but you also, we've talked a long time about your previous doctors that did everything in their power that you loved and you
yeah,
trusted,
yep,
and they had their own armamentarium. Does it mean that they had the most advanced armamentarium? No,
yep.
but they had their armamentarium. And I remember the conversations when you're like, I don't want to betray them. I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't
Well,
want, what are they going to think? Right. And I know a
right,
lot of people have that. And I just had a patient today that is on deck for bilateral foot
mm,
amputations. And she said that she doesn't want a second opinion because she likes and trusted her doctor, and she doesn't understand why someone, a hospital would hire a doctor that doesn't know how to have those advanced skills to save the foot.
boy,
So
oh
if
boy,
he
was I
says
that way.
amputation,
Mm.
then amputation. So I'm
I
curious your thoughts.
I was exactly that way.
Yeah.
We have a tendency, and I kept saying this, we have a tendency to deitize our doctors. They know everything. Well, they have a license to practice medicine. Doesn't mean they practice it well. Um, my doctors here, and they ran a leg saving clinic, but they didn't have all the skills that doctors that Kim knows. And it was mainly all endovascular, um, between the radiologists and the cardiologists. They were able to clear things up. And then I changed my lifestyle. I quit smoking, quit drinking, started eating better, walking as best I could. But even I refused a walker, or they wanted to put me in a wheelchair, and I said a couple curse words, and I was hopping around on half a foot, one leg for a year and a half with a walker. I just refused. And I said, if I get into a wheelchair, my body's going to deteriorate.
Yeah.
Yep. And I didn't want to do that. So
And I think that that's a really important message to send, that, you know what, sometimes amputation is inevitable. And especially in your
sure.
type of situation where you almost don't have control over your genetics. And sometimes things can just happen in an acute way. And there's still so many doctors are trying to learn about genetic blood clotting issues. There's still so much to learn, still so much we don't know. We have a lot of patients that go into procedures across the globe where the doctor goes in, there's no indication that there's this, the type of clotting that's happening. And they do what I call poking the beehive. They go in there with a wire into the artery, and suddenly one move and they get a shower of clots just going straight down the
Mhm.
leg into the foot. And then it's an emergency procedure where they have to release the pressure down there in the calf, and they have to do what's called a fasciotomy and just
That's
open up that skin and release the pressure down there in the
that's
calf.
that's what
And a
I
lot
ended
of
up having.
times,
Hmm.
and that's what you ended up having
Right.
as well. And it still didn't do everything, and you still ended
Mm.
up, losing your leg below the knee.
Right.
But it was, for you, it could have been an above the knee, but
I
um,
really pushed them to save it because it's so much easier. The funny thing is, during this year or so that the doctor here did everything he could. I was studying being an amputee. I was looking at the prosthetics and living as an amputee. So I had a head start, I guess I could say, because I knew what I wanted when it eventually happened. And that's exactly what I'm wearing now, is the prosthetic that I wanted. And it's been with PAD, it's been a godsend because simply when I get the numbness, I can take it off so quickly and easily and put it back on, and nobody even knows. So, um, some people are very, very touchy about their prosthetics. They don't want to show it in public and so forth. We go out to dinner, I take it off, put it on the table if I have to. This is my life. I'm an amputee. Hello, Um, if somebody gets offended anymore, sorry. But and I've had looks, I've had people, when we're going through, I use the term going out to dinner. I have a zipper on my inner leg that I can unzip on my jeans to get access to take it off. And doing it under table, nobody knows any different. But I've had people catch it in the corner of their eye. It can be embarrassing, but it's been a while and I'm just over that.
Huh?
I'm just over it now.
Yeah. But it's something that what people don't realize is that, okay, so you've had an amputation, it's not over with for you. And so some doctors think that, well, you've got your life back and you're going to get your life back a lot quicker than trying to go through a lot of these revolving door of just trying to save it, trying to heal the wounds, things like
Yeah.
that. But and for some, it is a better life to just go straight for the amputation versus, going back and having to do wound care every day. And everyone has their own choice. And it's nice when the doctor can offer you the different options that are available and be that partner in care and support you in whatever decision that you are making, as long as it doesn't threaten your life or threaten further limbs.
And
I think that that's important.
that's the my doctor here said, "Are you sure you want to go through all this?" And the funny thing is they were a husband wife team, both were vascular surgeons, and she knew Dr. Mustafa, she knew Dr. Saab. She said, "When it happens, we'll send you up there." Well, I said, "Okay," and then I met Kim. She and we just got on the ball rolling to save my legs, and I'm grateful that I still have one, and I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't say don't go through it. It was a long 2 years. It was a lot of battling, a lot of trying to stay positive with things. Maybe it'll work this time. Um, and there were a lot of calls uh, very quickly where I needed help, and she's always been there. So her big system works very, very well, but she has to get to know you. So my advice is at least give her the chance.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes for people because I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to give medical advice at all. I'm here to be your partner in this journey.
You're
I'm
the
here
you're the
to
bridge
help.
between the doctor and the patient.
Yeah.
So when we say you saved our leg, you literally did. Because without knowing those doctors that we wouldn't have any access to it.
And I give so much credit for these doctors. These doctors, I was just at a conference in Las Vegas with them, and have some of the most amazing hearts. They take each and every one of you to heart. And
Mhm.
in fact, I saw one of your doctors there, Dr. Kumar Madasari from Rush Hospital in Chicago. He's an
Mhm.
vascular interventional radiologist there. And he was on podium. He was speaking. He was talking about some of the latest cutting edge procedures. And when I, go up to him in person, how's Alan doing? How's Beth doing? Like he remembers
Oh
each
yeah,
and every one of his patients and he
he's
takes each and every one of you personally. And that is literally across this network of who we call CLI operators or CLI fighters. CLI stands for critical limb ischemia. It can also be known as CLTI, critical limb threatening ischemia, and it's the most advanced stage
Mhm.
of peripheral artery disease, those blocked arteries in your legs. And if you ask a doctor that you're trying to choose as your vascular specialist, are you a CLI fighter? Are you a CLI operator? If they look at you funny and go, well, I don't know, what do you mean? What's that? They're not.
Right.
But if they are, they know exactly what you're talking about. And they know that you know your stuff. It
You,
doesn't mean that you need a CLI operator. Most PAD patients never even advance to that level. But geez, isn't it nice to know that if you did need them to exhaust all available efforts, if amputation is on the line, then our philosophy is why not try?
right. It's like being a cancer patient and not having the option for even a trial that they're doing just to save your life for even if it's for a while. Oh, but I don't think anybody wants to die. Um, so we should have that right to at least try. And if it doesn't work, okay, take the leg. I still want to live, and that's where I got to. Um, and we were talking about these doctors' hearts. All of them have been the most gracious people to deal with, and they love their patients. And even Dr. Madasseri came in on a Sunday early evening after I had lost my leg just to see me. He had nothing to do with the hospital. He was driving by, and he said, "You know what? I'm gonna stop and see Alan," and he did. And I got the biggest hug and thanked him. His team was the one working on me, and I had been handed over to the vascular team at that point. And I said, "You know what? We better check out the right leg while I'm here." So he ordered ultrasound. Sure enough, 3 days later, I was down in cath lab again with a very long, that we talk about those long occlusions below me. And boy, I had, and he said, "Boy, it's a good thing you thought of that."
Yeah.
And yeah,
And you were one of the main ringleaders for his Global Humanitarian of the Year award for
yep.
2024 this year. He truly is a good human being and cares so much about his patients. And I want to have you address the fact that we know, again, amputations do happen. And amputations are necessary and they are treatment in many cases. And there are some doctors that have been very upset with me for offering patient calls me, they want a second opinion outside of that hospital or for someone else. And I always say to the doctor, if the patient desires a second opinion, wouldn't you want that for your family? Number one. Number two is even if amputation is the only option, you want to make sure that that patient doesn't live in regrets. And if it means just, giving them that affirmation that they need with another doctor, then why not do it? It's nothing against you as a doctor. It's literally just that who wants to live in regrets, and you go home, right? And
Mhm.
then you find out that, oh my gosh, there was a doctor right down the hall that was part of a trial for something called deep vein arterialization, brand new cutting
Mhm.
edge procedure, Hail Mary procedure for no option patients when nothing else can be done for amputation because the foot is a complete desert, no flow. In many cases now, there are several doctors across the globe that have this option where the doctor can actually hijack a vein at the calf or in the ankle and reroute blood flow into the foot using a vein. And it's pretty incredible. But what if you left the hospital without your leg and then you find out later, like, oh my gosh, why didn't I get a second opinion? And you know what? Maybe the doctor that was your supervising doctor just did not know that maybe in a different practice just down the hall, or even another colleague within the same practice was part of a trial for this device or had access to this device or had been to a different conference where they learn the technique or learn some new technique in which the doctor said, "Oh my God, like this is amazing. You're already on deck for amputation. If it's not going to cause further harm, then why not try?"
And
And
that's
go ahead.
exactly where I was with just having the general uh, interventions done that I had done.
Yeah.
Not with this specifically with this, but that's exactly where I was, and I'm glad I
And
had them
some,
done.
and you couldn't have had the amputation sooner. You weren't ready.
Nope.
And there was this process, right, of where you were like, okay, let's exhaust all efforts so I
Yep.
can't live in regrets, to the point where we were in the hospital and you told me you can't go through with the amputation. And you didn't want to be a burden on your
No.
wife. And I was that middle person where she's telling me do everything to save his life. I don't care about his legs. And here's you going, I don't care about my life. I want to keep my legs because I don't want to be a burden. And it was a process to get to a point to where you could have that heart to heart, not only with yourself, but then also, with your wife,
Yeah.
to come to terms with it.
I was in denial for a few days, and to come to terms with it, uh, she just told me that I'm more than my legs. Kim was on the phone. She explained to me what was going on with my left leg. Having her as an advocate really pays off because she can really, I'm going to call it dumbing down so I can understand what is actually happening with my leg. And my wife said that to me, and I said, okay, I'll keep fighting. And I'm still here. Otherwise, I
I'm
probably
glad.
wouldn't be.
I'm so glad you did. And this battle isn't over. When it comes to
Nope.
PAD and vascular diseases and cardiovascular diseases, it's a roller coaster. And
Mhm.
just every time you think that you've gotten to a point where you're like, whew, I'm in the clear, it's like, oh crap, no, now what?
Right.
And then it went back to your heart, didn't it?
Yep. Just this last, oh, what was it, June? Had met a doctor here that was supposed to be really good with legs. Everybody was talking about him. Even my vascular surgeons were saying, hey, this guy seems to be pretty good. So I said, I introduced myself, got a, how you doing, doc? Meeting. And asked him the questions and so forth. And he said, I don't stop. I will get blood flow no matter what. Uh, but I kept him as my cardiologist, and it was nice to have somebody local that could possibly work on my legs in a pinch, um, in an emergency situation, especially if it was just a clot in my SFA or in my femoral artery. They're pretty easy to remove. Um, I had started having heart problems where just a lot of pressure, and in the middle of the night, I would have pain from my back coming through to my chest, down my arm, into a couple fingers, and it would go away with some just breathing exercises, whatever. Then it started getting progressively worse over a 5 or 6 week period, and I went into the hospital, into ER, and they couldn't find anything as far as no signs of a heart attack, but I couldn't breathe. I couldn't. I was tired all the time, and again, they sent me home on new medications. They weren't helping. They were making me more tired, uh, where I was not able to function maybe 3 hours to 4 hours a day. And the thing was that the pains kept coming, and I was starting to take 3 and 4 nitrotabs a day, trying to get through this. So my doctor, the new doctor, finally said, let's do an angiogram. He did it. They found the blockage. He said, oh, just threw his hands up. That's when I'm we're going to treat this with medications. Well, it was the same medications I was already on, weren't helping. And I called Kim on the following Monday. That was on a Friday. I called Kim on Monday afternoon. She had me up in Chicago with another cardiologist. And 2 weeks later, after all the testing he wanted to do, he knew right where it was without having an angiogram done. And I was in and out of cath lab in an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes. And he was able to get through 100% occlusion in my heart, ballooned it and stunted it, where this other cardiologist didn't have the skills. And that was about all there was to that. So again, now I'm with this doctor up in Chicago. He does both legs and heart. I'm very comfortable. I'm grateful for him. Some of my former doctors were at the university hospitals, the big hospitals, and being an amputee, these places are enormous. They're hard to get around. You'll have to go a half mile for one test, and then go see him same day because you're out of town and trying to maneuver everything as an amputee is difficult. So
That's a really good
this
point
is
as well. That's a
little
really good point.
hospital, it's a much smaller hospital. They're known for their heart and leg department. I'm going to call it that. And he even has an office-based lab if it's not an emergency, which I do prefer. It's in and out, stay overnight, check it again, and you're home. So there's more options there for me. And if he can't do it, he has absolutely no shame in saying, you need to go see this doctor. He can do this. I can't. But he's been fantastic. And again, Kim saved the day for me.
Well, that's one of those things where you didn't tell me you were going in for your heart cath first with that other
Right.
doctor. And then I have to hear it from our friend Douglas. Douglas calls me and he's on here somewhere. He'll probably chime in a second. He can be the peanut gallery for this interview. And he was like, Kim, I don't think Alan's doing too well. He's not going to call you.
Right.
And I said, wait a minute, why
Big
not?
mistake. Big
And
mistake.
so
I
he
got a
waits
phone
till
call.
afterwards. And I'm like, what are you doing? You're really testing my skill set here. I mean, seriously. You're like, Kim, my doctor tells me that I basically am just going to keep popping these pills until I die. Like there's nothing they can do to open up my heart. They don't know what's going on. And so I get on the phone with a doctor who is a pioneer in what we call CTO crossing in the coronaries, chronic total occlusions, or 100% blockages in those coronary vessels. And he's actually pioneered techniques and things like that. Doesn't mean he can get through everything. He really is still conservative and he tries to make sure that he does everything safely and efficaciously. But when I called him to just have him review your case, a lot of times, sometimes what is inevitable, and maybe just a different doctor can have a different conversation and help, break the reality of something to you in a different way that will allow you to live out the rest of your life without any regrets. Again, right? No
Mhm.
regrets. And
Exactly.
so I got on the phone and it had that weird international ring. And I said, Doc, it's Parag Doshi. And I said, Dr. Doshi, where are you? And he says, I'm actually standing right now at the Arctic Circle. And he sent me a picture with he and his wife, literally the sign for the Arctic Circle. He's standing right there. And I said, well, what are you doing answering the phone? And he replied, well, it's you calling. And I know with you, there's a life or a limb on the line. And I wanted to help. And so he did. And immediately I mentioned that you needed help, told him what happened. And before we even got off the phone, he had already sent me a text with another doctor that we actually know that's one of his partners who also specializes in crossing these CTOs. And he said, can he drive over today? And the great thing, and this is another point I want to drive home, Alan, because both you and Douglas are fantastic at this, is getting your records. If anyone walks away from this interview with nothing else, get your records every single time you have a test. Make sure, ask for a CD of that test, ask for the notes, the technical notes of that test, the written notes, get them in your hand. know how to navigate the record system in your hospital, in your facility, in your office-based lab or ambulatory surgical center or clinic. Make sure you always have your up-to-date records with you. And because Alan had this down, he was able to go pick up the CD of his last angiogram and literally drive 2 hours that day over to this facility to go get that consult to review his case. And that, I think, Alan, one, I mean, it's amazing. It's just a testament, to your commitment to being your own best advocate for number one. But number two, I have so many patients that I say, hey, do you want your life saved, your limb saved? I mean, you sometimes do have to drive. There are medical deserts where maybe a smaller community hospital may not have the advanced skill set necessary to do complex cases. That's why in some small hospitals, they even have partnerships with larger hospitals so that they can transfer patients with more serious issues, or to hospitals that may have a specialty in one issue, in one particular ailment or another. And so, um, for you, Alan, I give you so much credit for being the best advocate for your care, and wanting and willingness to go the extra mile to save your own
Thank
life
you.
and your limb.
Thank you. I travel. This is a hint for anybody that really, if you have your testing done at the same facility, every year I go back at the end of the year and they put every test that I've had made on 2 or 3 CDs, and I travel with them in my visor of my truck. So I have them no matter where I'm at. And it gives the doctor that day, he was so grateful that I did that because it gave him a guideline to see what was going on, even though that doctor that did that angiogram cut it short and he couldn't exactly see what he needed to see, but he had an idea of where the problem was.
Marcia has a question. Marcia, go ahead and chime in. Marcia just had a procedure too. She was on deck for amputation, still is on deck and doing everything in her power, being her own best advocate. Marcia, go ahead and chime in. Share your insight, share your perspective, share your question.
Hey, Alan. You give me such hope. You really do. First off, I can't imagine knowing that I have lived with PAD or PVD for 2 decades, although I likely have, since I had a widowmaker heart attack when I was 52.
Mm-hmm. That was mine at the age of 34.
Wow.
Yep.
And so I'm at a place. I recently had a bit of a disturbance in the atmosphere when I saw a podiatrist, and she wouldn't even touch my toe. And she said, "It looks like you need a toe amputation." And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. And my befuddlement has been trying to get these procedures scheduled in a timely fashion. And I share one of your doctors. Today I had a procedure done called a TAMI. And I was done by the doctor who invented it about 13 or 14 years ago, Dr. Mustafa. And
he's fantastic, isn't he?
Yes, he is. He's so kind and loving.
Yep.
And he gives me hugs. We hug each other. He says, "Yeah, we're going to make a great team." And
tell him I said hello next time you see him.
I will do it. I sure will. So my thing about these appointments, and especially university hospitals, look, I'm a retired x-ray tech. I worked in a teaching hospital. So I thought, well, I could go there and get a decent answer, at least maybe get into a research study or something. And my first go round, sent to a vascular surgeon after having an iliac stent put in, he said, well, we couldn't do the procedure. He was trying for a bypass, actually, and thank God he couldn't do it, because it's before I talked to Kim, because I couldn't sleep at 90 minutes at a time. And said, no, we didn't have any access to do it. So your choice is to live with the pain or have an above knee amputation. And I'm like, whoa, I'll get back to you on that. And that's when, through a fellow, actually a dementia advocate care partner friend of mine, whose husband is in the group, told me about the group. And I posted my story, and Kim came right on my post and she said, stop, wait, get a second opinion. Where do you live?
He's
And
not
so
even kidding. I literally was that blunt.
and no, and that fast too, because I just
Mhm.
like finished posting my thing. And so I'm like, yeah, so I told her where I lived, and she referred me to one interventional cardiologist, and he kind of decided to drop the ball with me, I think. Well, I don't think,
Well,
I
I
know.
think that he did. As I said, different doctors have different skill sets and different, philosophies and priorities. And um, this person got you out of the woods. And
Yes, he
and that was
did.
really the goal in that moment.
Yeah,
A spectacular operator. It's just there are very few that will go the extra mile. You're one of those cases, Marcia, where I would say 99.9% of doctors, they couldn't save your leg. And you know, there are just a handful that have this little extra finesse and a little special touch to be
mhm.
able to go that extra mile. And as long as you're willing to fight and as long as it doesn't do any more harm and it becomes your choice that I I I want to do everything in my power and at least try. I don't want to live with regrets. And if a doctor is willing to at least try, then here we go.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm at a place where, look, I'm almost 67. I'm not a spring chicken. Um, I live alone. And honestly, the thought of living in my 70s, recuperating from an above the knee amputation is like, no, thank you. Uh-uh. I'm not doing it. I'm sorry. To me, that is like too much. Let me just keep both my limbs as long as I can. If I have to have maybe a toe amputated or half a foot, I could deal with that. But an above knee amputation, nah, put me on
Well,
palliative care and I'm checking out.
well, the funny thing is, I thought that same way. You heard a little bit of the story, and I was just ready. I was ready to call it quits, laying in the hospital, and um, thank God I had my wife and Kim there to talk some sense into me, where I finally gave in. But being a person living with PAD and living with amputations, and not everybody wants to hear this, there is life after amputation. I'm sorry if you disagree, but I didn't think there would be either. And I'm leading a pretty full life. Um, I'm not getting around as well as I
Yeah.
was an avid hiker and I love taking my dog for walks. And as you get older, your balance, only having half a foot on the right and, nothing on the left. One bonus is I will never have to cut my toenails again. Um, balance is a little challenging. The only thing I can urge everybody to try is all the doctors that I've seen go directly to above knee because below knee is more difficult for them. There's another bone involved. Um, it's much easier to keep your knee to get around. My wife, again, I hopped around on a walker with one, half a foot on one leg for a year and a half. And
Wow.
I refused help. Um, I taught myself how to do things. I was even able to get my plate of food I was cooking. I was home. So I'm moving around the kitchen cooking and I had a stool in there and I figured things out. I'm one of those because it wasn't literally my first amputation. I also lost a thumb. So, and I had to figure out how to do things without half a thumb. So I wasn't inept to it. I knew kind of what I was doing, but it was going to be a longer road. And so I don't want to see anybody lose their life because they don't want to get an amputation, because you can, even by yourself, because I'm so stubborn that I got through it. My wife didn't have to lift a finger really, other than doing my laundry, because our laundry's in downstairs, and I wasn't doing steps real great until I learned how to use a single crutch, and I was hopping up a set of 4 stairs to get into her house with a railing and using one crutch, and then hopping up each step. You just learn how to do things. And I've heard people, oh no, that's it, I'm not doing it, and they want to end their life right there and then, because it's too overwhelming for them to think about. But it's really not. After being through it, there are things that are hard, but you can make a life for yourself.
Yeah, and I say this today, and I realize that, we go through stages of grief with this disease. And I realize I say this now today, but I can't honestly say I would say the same thing if I was thrown into that ultimate choice either.
Mm-hmm.
So
Always
I
fight
leave
for below
room
knee if you
for,
have to.
I leave room for changing my mind. It's my prerogative. But
Yep.
anyway, thank you so much for inspiring me, because another interesting thing is that the first interventional cardiologist that Kim sent me to said, it's a good thing you caught this early. And I was already at critical limb threatening ischemia. I already had an open wound on my toe. And this guy's telling me, it's a good thing you caught this early. So I'm thinking, well, God, if I caught this early, what is late? I guess a
Right.
whole
I'm late.
necrotic leg, or, what? Let's not go there.
Right.
So thank you very
You're very
much, Alan.
welcome. Keep fighting the good fight.
Yeah, and
Indeed.
if it keeps yourself in the right mindset, that's the fear of amputation is keeping you fighting. Keep fighting. Keep
Fantastic.
keep hearing it. And I like the fact that you said that I have a right to change my mind, as Alan did. I have a right to change my mind, and everyone has a right to change their mind, because we're going to be there for you where you are, and we're not going to leave you at any point in this journey, and we'll shift with you. As I said, um, you know, more than 60% of well, I should say first, more than 85% of all of the amputations are, being performed. They're not necessary, they're premature, right?
Mm-hmm.
60% of which, and these are some numbers I saw, and that was from the American Diabetes Association, who said that 85% of all diabetic related amputations are unnecessary, right? And that could include that, gosh, if only it was diagnosed earlier, if only. And Eric Szymski et al. He's a doctor out of Boston area. He and his team came out with research that said more than 60% of all amputations related to PAD are being performed without a doctor even following Society for Vascular Surgery guidelines, or the new 2024 PAD management guidelines, 90% of which, so 60% of which are being performed where doctors are not even attempting to save the leg. They're not attempting at all to save the leg. But even worse is 90% of those, the patient's not even getting a vascular evaluation at all.
No,
They're
that
just
is
saying
true.
you have diabetes and we're going to cut off your leg.
Yep.
And that's really sad. And that's why, conversations like this are so important, because, even today with this call that Douglas and I got at 4:30 in the morning, my time, with a patient on deck for these amputations, yes, you want to trust your doctor. And if your life is on the line, by all means, and you have to ask that question. If my life is on the line and I'm going septic because I have wet gangrene on my foot and a really bad infection, if my life is on the line, I'm going to get that amputation. I'm going to say, no, 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 just take it and take it quick. But if your life is not on the line, it's really important to explore all options with innovation moving at the speed of light for PAD care. So it's really, really important. But Douglas wants to jump in and ask a question. Douglas, go ahead and unmute and share your thoughts, share your comments, your inspiration, any question for Alan as well.
So my thought process is kind of simple. If you go back and you think about your journey, how did stubbornness and hard-headedness play a role in some decisions you made along that path?
Oh,
And if you could do any, you know, because I'm gonna say this. I hear it a lot through the group. Well, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. I'm not driving 3 hours there. I'm not doing this. Or I'm scared of this, so I'm not going to do this. And that fear of that unknown stops us. And is that the hard headedness and stubbornness that we have sometimes? And how does that create some scenarios that we have to live with and consequences? And with what you know now about yourself and what I know about you now too, being your friend, is if you were to go back, were there some things that you wish maybe you had done a little different along your path that might infected where you are today?
it's a
That's
good
a tough
question.
one.
Well, the stubbornness and the hard-headedness has gotten me through it. And I'm a person that doesn't like quitting. Almost every challenge in my life, I've succeeded where I want to be. So it wasn't second nature to want to quit, other than I didn't want it to affect other people directly. I knew it was going to affect my kids, the grandkids. I knew Katie would be okay in the long run, and she'd be okay without me. She's a fighter also. So for me, it was a turning point of where Kim and I were on the phone with Katie, and Katie couldn't get it through my head, and she finally said, "You're more than your legs" to me. So that's where I said I'll fight. But to this day, I will not let it affect my wife's life. It does, but not directly. She doesn't have to help me with anything. If I was a burden on a lot of people that had to, bathe me and all that stuff, no way. I couldn't do it. I
So
couldn't do it.
I want to. This thought is the stubbornness and hard headedness can also be a negative sometimes.
Oh, sure.
Where
It almost was.
yeah, where I hear it in the group sometimes. I'm not going to do this. I can't do this, and
I think
Double-edged sword.
I think when you have a disease, whether it's cancer, heart disease, this disease, you have to change and have a little bit of an open mind. If you're just not going to live with the disease and fight, then there's nothing to do but give up. If you're not going to, and I've a lot of friends now that I see with the amputations I have up in this area. I see they have one leg amputation. All they use is a wheelchair. I'm like, you're not going to make it. Their bodies deteriorate so quickly. In the hospital, I was there for 51 days. I came out and I looked like a wet balloon. My body mass had gone to nothing. And it's like every day you're in the hospital, you use 2 or 3 days of muscle. in 24 hours, not being able to exercise. And I just see this happening to them slowly but gradually. And I couldn't let that happen to myself. So the stubbornness, hopping around, I'll do it all over again. And
My
if I
other
lose,
favorite part of your stubbornness, though, is I know you're so committed to find someone that is right near you.
oh yeah,
And you keep in it. And I love this about you, though, that you still want to have faith that you can find one of these advanced doctors for your presentation of disease right there in your backyard. Um, and you keep wanting to try. And I keep saying they're few and far between for
yep,
your situation. Sometimes you need a specialist. It's just like with cancer. Your local hospital may not have someone who specializes in pancreatic cancer. You
mhm,
might need to go to Cancer Treatment Centers of America or Rush Hospital to get that one person who has done extensive research in that particular area and has a higher volume of patients and success stories and has tried different techniques that may not be the general standard of care, but maybe they're able to better individualize that treatment for you because they eat, sleep, and breathe that particular thing. And it's the same thing with PAD. Every single vascular surgeon will tell you they treat PAD. And when you call the general vascular surgery department, you say, I have PAD, I need an appointment with the vascular surgeon. You get whomever is the first one in there. But not every single one has the same volume of cases. You might have one person that for some reason from the very beginning, they have a lot of aortas and they're always opening up aortas, whether it's the blockages in the aortas or they have a dissection, an aneurysm in the aorta. They do a lot of aortas, even by default. It just seems to happen. So they become really, really good at it. But then there might be someone next door to them that just had the first appointment available. And maybe that person literally has a high volume of below the knee disease. And they do a lot of those. So you as a patient ends up needing below the knee treatment for below the knee disease, but somehow you end up with the doctor that does mostly aortas. This person might do below the knee every once in a while, but mostly aortas. Wouldn't you rather go to that person that literally does these all the time, that
mhm,
has a high volume of them, has a high success rate with them, and is always on top of learning new tools and new techniques, eating, breathing, sleeping, below the knee, critical ischemia disease? And not everyone has that option, right? Not everyone has those choices in one particular facility or even in their insurance network. That's why as we move into open enrollment, what I always suggest doing is sitting down and making a list of everything you have going on in your healthcare. If you have PAD, if you have CAD, if you have diabetes, making sure that you are in a network, that you diabetologist in your network that you can see and is
yep,
available for you. There are some states there might be just one diabetologist available, so you might need an insurance that would get you across the border into another state if you're close to that border. Same thing if you can't get transportation to appointments because you might be an amputee and you can't, hit the accelerator button. And so you need insurance that will cover that transportation and have that transportation readily available for you. But no one really talks about this. And I think it's really important that we're in open enrollment coming up pretty quickly here. Sit down and really make sure that your insurance is not going to cause you any sort of delays or denials in care from a doctor of your choice. That's really important. And it doesn't matter if they're 2 or 3 hours away. You might need to do that to get the best care available, but make sure you have options, right?
Exactly. I'm very fortunate. I have fantastic insurance. We have a hefty HSA account every year, and I live right next, 40 miles away from a city that has, Kim would know, I don't know how many doctors Chicago has or surrounding areas, but I can name half a dozen right off the bat that she can get me into fairly quickly for treatment.
Yeah.
So a lot of ways, I'm fortunate. I know the struggle people go through with Medicare, um, and just not having good insurance. I've been there. It's not
Yeah.
easy, but I am one of the fortunate ones.
Yeah, we're having more luck with Medicare and supplements versus we have a lot of delays and denials in care, especially for PAD patients with Medicare Advantage. So if you are looking at open enrollment, really dive in with each and every option to make sure your Medicare Advantage plan is not using a basic algorithm to deny your procedures first and forcing your doctors to go back and go back and go back and go back and appeal and appeal and appeal to finally where they have to do a peer review. And meantime, you're sitting there and you're suffering. You have a wound that won't heal. You have pain that is unconscionable that's waking you up at night. And your insurance company doesn't seem to care. They don't understand. And you really need to make sure that they are friendly towards the treatment of below the knee disease, because we have had different insurance companies that will approve a procedure for above the knee. But if you have blockages below the knee, they will not approve the procedure below the knee, which is very frustrating. If you're on deck for amputation, we just had a patient that was amputated because of a delay, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And this person had below the knee disease that could have been opened up. And the insurance company wouldn't even let the doctor try. And the doctor kept appealing, appealing, appealing. And finally, this patient just ended up in the emergency room. And it was too bad. By then, they ended up with wet gangrene and needed the amputation. And it was just sad. It was one of those needless amputations, unnecessary amputations. If only the insurance company would have allowed the doctor to just do what he or she knew how to do. And what I always tell insurance companies is let's not take it out on the patients. If you have an issue with a certain doctor or a type of procedure that a doctor does or a facility does or imaging that a doctor orders or a facility is billing for, then just don't contract with them. Just don't contract with them and be honest with the patients that this isn't something that you support, so that when you as a PAD patient comes in and you say, hey, I want this insurance, but I'm a PAD patient. I have blockages below the knee. I have blockages in my foot. I have a wound that won't heal. I need to make sure, or I'm at risk of, because I'm a type 2 diabetic or type 1 diabetic, or I have chronic kidney disease or an autoimmune condition where I end up clotting a lot and I get a lot of below the knee disease and into the foot. They need to be able to answer those questions. Do you allow treatment for this? Because if I'm on deck for amputation, I want an insurance company that will be right alongside me to help me and my doctor fight for that limb and at least give it the best chance possible to
Just
keep me on 2 feet.
a little side story. My brother has kidney cancer, and it skipped into his lung at stage 4. He looked like he wasn't going to make it, and he had just retired at 70. Finally got done and tired, and he went on Medicare, and he chose. My brother's very analytical. He was an economist, and he started studying the extra insurance that you have to have with Medicare, and he went with Mutual of Omaha. Sometimes you have to think outside the box, because without making that choice, some of the larger insurance companies that offer, like Blue Cross, Aetna, United, he got some of the best treatment he could in Chicago, but it was not. It was a different type of therapy, and not just, cancer, radiation, and so forth. But the treatments, the copays were $4,500 each time, once a month. And it was something new that's out. And who covered it? Mutual Omaha. Plus the manufacturer of this drug came through and said, "Can you afford this?" And he said, "Not really. I just retired." But Mutual Omaha picked up all of the extra, and they cut his copay. And today, everything shrunk. He's alive. He is an avid race car driver. He's back to racing and instructing at Elkhart Lake in Wisconsin and some of the smaller tracks around here. He looks fantastic. So with the insurance, think outside the box sometimes and look for the smaller companies that cover some of the things that you may be dealing with, because the big boys are not always the way to go.
Nope. And there's an organization called patientadvocate.org, and they offer you a case manager that not only will help you understand the different insurance and not have a stake in it, but number two is they also can help you negotiate down your hospital bills.
Yes.
Which is amazing. They teach you how to go through and call the facility on possible charges that may be able to be negotiated down. So they're really great to have. The only thing is that when it comes to choosing a doctor, we've had several patients that have called them and they're like, "Oh, well, what kind of doctor do you want? This insurance has, about 100 vascular surgeons and whatever. So why don't you try this one? They're near you." No, when you're listening to people that are helping you select the doctor, make sure that you find the experts. The American Heart Association for heart doctors and diabetologists and endocrinologists. Go to the American Diabetes Association for PAD. Come to our organization for PAD and CLTI. Doctors that specialize in this. Really don't just Dr. Google it. Don't just listen to the insurance company. Like, really go to those experts that can help you find those questions that are going to help you get to the core of a doctor's skill set and a doctor's passion for exhausting all efforts to offer cutting edge approaches and tools to save your life and your limb.
It's either that or call Kim and get her on the line, because actually she scares doctors with all her knowledge.
No,
I had a little
I inspire sometimes.
That was just out of fellowship, and we were going to check him out to see if he could just help me maintain. And we found out, like, we both sat there and he got nervous talking to Kim.
I have to say, Kim, that the first time I met with Dr. Mustafa, I mentioned your name, and his body language gave off a little bit of fear. It did. So, but it was a good fear. It was a very respectful kind of fear. So, yeah.
We don't want to call it.
Alan, I have a question.
Sure.
That, if you don't mind, I want to loop back around to some of what you were telling in your story. And you had mentioned that it was blood clots. And so my question is, blood clots are actual blood clots, or as opposed to, like, my deal is, like, I have concrete for blood from atherosclerosis, basically, high cholesterol. So was yours clots?
Well, it was a combination. I have atherosclerosis of the legs, severely.
Me too.
Yes, I just recently had a CT scan with a dye from mid chest all the way down, and I'm very heavily calcified. But I just had, it was just a clot that formed. It was soft. They go in with a vacuum, suck it out, and you're done.
Unless it goes up to your brain.
That's it. You got to get it and get it quick. But it acted just like critical limb ischemia, with just one leg hopping around, And
Wow.
yeah.
And are you diabetic?
Yes, I am type 2.
Okay. All right. And see, I'm not. That's what's kind of weird about me. So I'm guessing I must have some other weird genetic factor that just gives me concrete blood.
There's a lot of them out there, and not
Yeah.
all of them are discovered yet.
And I'm like, I'm not even really that concerned about searching out the answer to that because it is what it is. And I have some solutions right in front of me. So let's go with that.
Exactly. You got to do you.
So we have a comment that's coming in from our good friend Becky. She's a moderator in our network and admin as well in several of the groups. And she says that she wants to thank Alan for not giving up on life, and she can't thank you enough for sharing your story and your courage.
Thank you, Becky. I know who you are.
We love Becky.
Yes. Fantastic.
Anyone
person.
else that is here in the audience? I know we have Nancy here. We have Marie who's here as well. We have Brenda. Again, we have Heinz that's here in our live studio audience. Any comments, questions, insight, inspiration?
Okay.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Alan. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I think you're very courageous. I don't know what I would do facing that, and it's always a fear with us with PAD. So I enjoyed listening to your story, and I'm happy that you're doing so well. And both of you gave me some good tips. The next time I go and get my ultrasounds and everything, I'm going to get copies of everything. That's a really good tip.
Yep.
And the patient advocate.org, that's good to know for friends. So great tips. I always learn something with every podcast we have. So thank you, Kim. And yes, Kim is an angel. Kim has saved me too. So yes, we love Kim. So keep going, Alan.
Do you not feel loved, Kim?
Oh,
I do. But I take each and every one of you personally. And I had a conversation actually with one of our advisors in the group, and everyone who's in our network knows Dr. Lorenzo Petrone. Had the opportunity. He won an award for all of his efforts in saving life and limb and inspiring others to do the same, helping to others to do the same through his educational efforts at this conference, this vascular conference known as Viva. And it was in Las Vegas, go figure, Viva Las Vegas. And I was telling him, he sent me a note this morning because we had a chance to meet up as well in Vegas. And he said, I just, thank you for what you do. You're doing a great job. And I said, I really needed to hear that today because as Douglas and I dealt with this one really tragic case this morning at 4:30 in the morning, where the patient's on deck for these bilateral foot amputations. Long story on that, but it's just disheartening sometimes, and sometimes you just can't help people in the way that they want help. Sometimes you just can't save someone's leg. Sometimes you can't save someone's life. But honest to God, I feel like I know this is my purpose, and I know if anything, I'm here to be there with you, to love on you, to support you, to be your friend in this journey, whatever journey it might be, and everyone is individual. And if it's even just me being here and knowing that someone's on your side, someone's by your side, then that's what it is. For each person, our relationships are different. And I do have some in the group that do go in their own direction. That I know that, yeah, gosh, we could just save that leg, but I am still with them. I support the decisions that you make. It's your journey. And I just feel blessed that you trust me to be alongside you on it in whatever role I can play.
Thank you, Kim.
Well, we appreciate you. And Marie says, Alan, you know how I feel about you. You keep me straight. Thank you.
Good old Marie.
Mm-hmm. We love Marie.
Yes,
You
we do.
the man. You the man.
Oh, brother. Well, I do get those phone calls from you in the middle of the night too.
You the man.
But I love how
Praise God.
everyone comes together. We have Denise who is joining us. Denise says, "Hey, Alan, good to see you. We have Thomas that's on, Tammy that's on. Of course, Becky's still there as well. We have Patty who's there, tuning in and saying hello. Chris is on the line and he's watching as well live. And so if anyone wants to join in any of our groups, they can go to padsupportgroup.org and join our amazing support group as well. Douglas, I forget our walking support group. Is that just padwalkingsupport.com or .org? Yeah, it's one of those. So it's either PAD Walking Support or padwalkinggroup.org. So it's one of those. But you can check out our walking group as well. And we have walking support because, as you know, walking is the best medicine. Brenda, did you want to jump in and say anything? I saw you unmuted. You're welcome to jump in and say hello. We always love hearing your beautiful voice from Michigan.
Oh, hi. I was having a little trouble with my phone. No, I don't have much to say. But I enjoyed listening to your story, Al. It was inspiring. And it kind of motivated me to get up, moving, trying to move more.
Hey, I don't know how I did it, but I actually grew collaterals around a 100% blockage in my right knee, hopping around. Go figure that one out.
Oh, wow.
Can be done.
Okay.
It can be done. We see
move.
people doing it. We see them doing it all the time. And a preliminary announcement here that you all get to hear first is, because our bodies are such miracles, and whether you are a person of faith or not, our bodies are, I always think that there's a reason to celebrate the miracles that they are, that we can grow these natural bypasses with every step we take around any blockages in your arteries. And so on the first Sunday of September, we are going to do a prayer walk for PAD and have a seminar where we're going to talk all about the collaterals. It'll be during Pad Awareness Month, so stay tuned because we are going to be holding that. We're partnering with Dr. Griffin, Joseph Griffin. He's a vascular surgeon over in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, a man of faith. He's very passionate about limb salvage. He's already helped several of our patients down there in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And everyone just loves him just because even if he does have to amputate, he's able to, sit there and pray with the patients who want to pray. He's just a wonderful human. And he's also going to start doing a regular prayers for PAD series once a month. I think it's going to be the first Thursday evening of every month. So if you're having a procedure, you're having a really hard time, you just want an extra prayer, or you just want someone to think about you. Maybe you're not religious. You just want someone to hold you in their thoughts and actually get confirmation. Many people say you're in my thoughts and in my prayers, but do you really know that? I don't know. But in this way, if you comment, if you submit your request for a thought or a prayer, we're definitely going to be holding you right there in our hearts, live the first Thursday of every month. So make sure you tune in. Don't forget to like our video here. Make sure you like it. More people will see it if you like it. The more people who like the video, the more people who see it, the more lives, the more limbs that we can save with Alan's story that he courageously shared and generously shared today. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel for more of these types of discussions. They're really important. Join us live in the in-studio audience. Join us on YouTube. Join our group, as I said, padsupportgroup.org. Make sure to join us, and we appreciate you all being here. If you need us at all, call our Lifesaver hotline at 415-320-7138, 415-320-7138. And if you are in any country across the globe, you can also go to padhelp.org, and go ahead and submit a form on the website, and we will find someone in whatever language you're most comfortable with to help you facilitate more effective life and limb-saving care, no matter where you are in the world. In fact, today we had someone we helped in Tehran, Iran, Tehran University in Iran. So that was pretty exciting. So thank you everyone for joining us. Any final words, Alan? We just appreciate you so much for being here. Any last thoughts and takeaways?
Just my saying, get rid of the stinking thinking and